Everyone. It's really nice and pleasure to be here. And I think today we talk a lot about innovation, to talk about like how to grow the business. And I think in this specific environment, in this specific context, we could really think that, okay, this is a really amazing story. It's great stuff, actually. It's a really great place to be. But if we look a little bit closer, I see that I think that can be a little bit more challenging. I think that it's a little bit more difficult to look, yeah, because even if we look at the innovation, if we talk about the growth, if we compare actually the Fortune 500 into like the two different data periods, like comparing, for example, 1955 and 2017, out of 500, only 60 actually companies are left on that list. So it's easier to talk about the growth. It's much more and actually it's easier to think about growth and innovation in short term. It's much more difficult to actually think around that, what it means in the long term. Because if we go actually to the perspective of the especially big company, once the company is getting successful, there's always a challenge actually how to, on one side, have the current growth, especially that once the company goes to the stock exchange, it has specific requirements coming from investors, it's coming from the people who invested in the company, and how to think actually how to think about the future. Yeah, we have this exploitation phase, exploitation part. So actually the part where actually we are trying to monetize, and we try to sustain the business, but then how to explore that space, how to find the new opportunities. And there's always this challenge that one part is actually trying to drag the other. How to actually think about. And if we go even further, always it's actually around how to attract the talents, how to attract the people. And so that's why if we talk about, okay, if we have this exploitation phase, so if we talk about this current business, we need usually very often different people versus for this exploration phase when actually we need really people looking at different perspectives, looking at the different stuff. Yeah? Actually, even at Google, like more and more often, actually we have this current business and future business. Actually, where like the different people, different teams having different KPIs. Some of them have more like short term. Some of them have a little bit long term. And trying to attract this talent, trying to attract these best people, very often we are trying to do it via like looking at okay, what kind of benefits we can give. That's why we have, those different presentations like showing, okay, what is the Google Office in this place versus the Google Office in this place versus like the other IT companies, because something like this is getting the standard in our industry among many companies. But then, okay, on one side we have specific benefits, but on the other hand, we need to bring the people who are like thinking in different way, and to very specific extent. Yeah, that's actually very interesting case coming from the past. Actually, some of people say that it's actually maybe not true, but it's kind of urban legend. But it's a very interesting case when the person that was doing and organizing one of the most famous Arctic journey. It was like in 1917. That was his kind of job description. Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, but bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe, return doubtful, honor and recognition given. And I think that is kind of the challenge, how to actually combine those two factors. Yeah, on the other one, to attract the best talents, but then on the other hand, to make sure that the people who actually are attracting, they are coming to you not for this, but actually for this. And that's, I think, it's like the biggest challenge around the growing business in the long term. Because if we look at why most of the organizations fail to sustain the growth in the future for the long term, is really actually very often those companies, they forget their past life, they forget how they lucky were. And if we go further looking at those different examples, of course, it would be quite easy to show how to actually sustain the growth, how to grow the company by the example of Google, but very often those would be the examples you know already. So that's why today we'll actually we'll be having very interesting case coming from Huuge Games, that one of the most successful Polish company in the gaming industry, which is actually not very well known often in Poland, and Łukasz, who is like product manager and person responsible for relationship with the developers, he will be sharing the story of the company, how they are on one side sustaining the growth they have today, but how they're thinking about this growth for the future.
Thank you, Mariusz.
Thank you. Hi everyone. So let's look at some numbers. So we believe that 21st century is the century of games. So if you look at this red chart, you can see that mobile games was in 2017 was worth over $50 billion, and it's still growing. In 2018, it will be it will grow 15%. So we as Huuge are interested in mobile free-to-play games. So there are over 2.5 billion people playing these games. So every third person in the world is playing a free-to-play game. Some numbers. We were founded in 2014. Last year we generated over 150 million of revenue. There are 400 plus employees spread across 10 offices globally. Our core main titles are Huuge Casino, Billionaire Casino. These are very big titles, which we developed since 2014. We are leaders in top downloads in social casino, and also top grossing Android apps. We have third position. So a little bit about our background story. So company was founded in 2002 by Anton Goffin, and first it was called Game Lion. We are focused on developing games as service. You can see probably everybody recognizes this game. And then Game Lion was sold, and in 2007, when the first iPhone was announced, Anton came back and bought the company back, and we started to develop games, free-to-play mobile games. So this is also when in 2014 Huuge started. So we were having more focus into social casino space, where we tried first develop some simple slot games, and then we extended into more social gaming platform. We also had tractions from investors, and we have now total funding amount around $60 million. So we have global recognitions. Everybody from the industry knows us. The competition is quite high, and now we want to expand our business and enter more casual games market, which I will tell you in a little bit time. So we are expanding. So here you can see our vision and mission, which we are executing. So our vision is to transform mobile gaming into a massively social experience, and our mission is to empower billions of people to play together. So we are very good at executing this mission and vision. So since now we have more than 100 million player connections, and we are aiming to be one of the biggest real-time social gaming platform. So if you see 100 million, it's like it's more people than in Japan. So the community is growing, and we want to expand this community to other genres, which I will tell you a little bit more in a second. So here you can see our social experience in our social Huuge Casino title. We are having a lot of social interactions inside the titles. People can play and feel like in the real casino, so they can compete with each other. But what distinguishes us from the competition is like people can form clans, and collaborate together in order to compete with other clans. Besides of this, there are also messaging opportunities, and people can share some swag around the game. So we have also big traction in media. You can see that from 2016 to 2017, we grow over 138%. So, and that growth is still huge. We have a very dedicated team, and what is very important to us is the culture. So here we can see a selfie made by Anton, our founder, from one of our summer parties. So what is the culture about? Everybody always keep learning at Huuge. They take initiative, they get things done, they play together as a team, challenge themselves, promote honesty, show high energy and passion, respect diversity. And of course we are making games, so we have a lot of fun doing this. So when you look at the story, we had, since now, we had developed over 200 mobile games. So we were focused on social casino games, and still it's the main revenue source for us, but we want to expand to other genres. And starting from Game Lion and throughout Huuge, we also were developing a lot of in-house games. So since now we develop over 200 mobile games spread across many genres. So we have very experienced guys on board. So recently we kicked off a brand called Tap Games, and it's like company within a big company. So it's a small team in a big team in a big company, and they are. So it was founded in 2018. Since now we developed 24 games. We have very fast speed. So we develop one game, release one game within a week. And there are 24 people working on this, and out of it, there are around 10-12 developers. So how these games looks like? They are hyper-casual games. Hyper-casual games are very easy games to play. So you can see, for example, based on this game, that you are having your phone in the portrait mode. For example, you are driving your bus or sitting on a meeting. And you can play it easily, so you only tap and the ball is jumping, so very simple mechanic. If you look from marketing perspective, the game is very easy to describe to somebody else, right? So you can go into the game and you understand everything. Also from the product perspective, it's not these games are not as big as, you know, social casino platform or something like this. Very easy. For you who don't have insights about the genres in the gaming space, starting from right, there are core and mid-core games, so RPGs and Clash of Clans, this kind of games which are very complex. Players need to spend money to progress. They are very complex when it comes to development and production. Also, audience in these two genres are like very narrow. The audience is very narrow, so these are players who like to play games, have expensive phones, and so on. Also, when you look from the product perspective, you need to produce a lot of documentation, and when you develop such kind of games, and also life cycle of this game is, of course, higher than these games. So if you look at product life cycle, it's like from 1 year to 3 to 0.5 and more years. Development also takes a lot of time and effort. And audience is narrow, as I told you. So what is interesting, so we were here, and now we are switching to this space, especially hyper-casual, which are smaller, lightweight titles. They are easy to play, short play sessions, monetized by ads, and these guys are monetized mainly by in-app purchases. And also they can be played on cheap phones. And what is very important, it's like these games go for wider audience. So it's like people here are players, and here are guys who are interested in general entertainment. And development, so life cycle of this kind of products is around half of the year. So you need to release many games to make your business work, and the development can take from 1 week to 3 months. So we are switching our product teams from bigger product teams to something smaller that I will tell you a little bit about. So 1 new tap-tap game every week, that's something we achieved. And we think, of course, big, so in Q4 we will release 10 games a month. So how we do this, how we work? In this in this tap-tap games team, each developer is owner. So we don't have product managers there, but each developer is the owner. I will tell you a little bit more in the next slide how it works. Game, of course, has to be on time. So we are very fixed on deadlines. So deadline is 1 week. We don't have a lot of meetings. So we have even deep work time where developers, there is no meetings in the, no one talks with each other within the office from 10:30 to 1 p.m. So everybody are focused on making the product work. So each game is developed in such kind of way. So we test also features. We try to test features on high traffic. So what does it mean? It means like we are releasing the game each week, but some of the games will not have success. So we try to move fast and release fast. Test it with traffic which we acquire, and if the game works or features work within this game, we are then investing the money to develop the product. So I told you that each developer is an owner. So every developer in our team has his project. So we try to meet and also talk, share what works in our competition and internally, what not, and then based on this, developers are creating the idea on their project, and they are developing a game. They can they have access to the resources. So they can, whenever they need some designs or QA or producer to talk about what works, what not, they can request such kind of person, but we don't put this kind of person into teams. So everybody is like owner of this project. We also have local leaders, so business owners, which are responsible for the whole team and delivering the value within short time frame. So also from the technology perspective, it's very interesting. So we developed framework. So which contains ad mediations, analytics, monetization, stats, leaderboards, authentication GDPR. All of this is within one framework. And whenever we are releasing the game, so preparing assets and building game mechanics, we are also integrating this framework to release a version. So having a framework and putting out the features which work into one framework, it gives us a speed that we can develop games and release games so fast. So yeah. Very interesting thing is like Huuge is environment where teams are cooperating with teams from different departments. So this is interesting case like we have very good content marketing team. So whenever a game is prepared to be released, we are asking content marketing team to prepare creatives for ad campaigns. So sometimes there is like developers develop a game. They deliver this game to content marketing team, and they are preparing ads, and the ads are many times better than the game in look and feel, for example. So developers take this as a feedback and they are trying to change the product so it looks more so it's more snackable with our users, our players. And I think that's all. You can always reach out to me, and thank you guys for your attention.
If you have any questions, I think we have some time. If you would like to ask, feel free to do it. Yes?
So the question was whether it's one developer per game or rather bigger team, right? So it works like each developer works on his game, on his product, and he's owner of this, so has full responsibility to deliver this. But whenever he needs assets, so he can ask for assets, graphic designs to other people, but mainly it's like every developer is responsible for his product. And if we are releasing a lot of games within a short time because we have a lot of developers. And whenever the games work, so market is, we look at retention. So if it hits certain retention goals, then the developer is asked to add additional features.
It's interesting system because in this way, like developer needs to have both like developers and business skills. Yeah, it's kind of some the way to, because the market is actually very fast and very vibrant, and I think it's very interesting case how the company that is actually exists in very competitive space, but the space that is when we have very high entry barriers, yeah, because the acquisition is expensive. You have specific limited number of people who play those games. You have actually a very limited number of companies, because you have actually just 3 or like 4 companies in the market that are actually taking the majority of the share of the market. And then how it actually in this perspective, because it's big, interesting market, but it has some specific limitations for future growth. How to actually move that company to another genre that has totally different business environment, totally different requirements, and totally different mechanic. Yes, I think that's in this perspective, it's very interesting example how it was done.
To add one thing, we have also dedicated team for this framework. So it's not like one developer for entire framework. It was at the beginning, it was such kind of situation, but now we have smaller team. And also the guys who are developing a game, whether they have some sort of feature that can be integrated, then they are helping out this team responsible for the framework.
Any other questions?
How do you come up with ideas for the game? Because you need 10 games. I guess it's more than 10 ideas per month. And do you encourage developers or your employees to come up with their ideas on their own?
Yeah, sure. It's like everybody are collaborating. The guys who are developing these products are, hardcore players, so they like to play these games. So we are looking at the top charts, what works, what doesn't, in relation to our competition. So our roadmap is like, tens or in our roadmap is, we have some sort of roadmap that, there are several titles, so each Friday we have some sort of meeting, like everybody are sitting down and we are discussing the games, what's happening, and what was working on the market, what kind of games were working on the market, so what kind of mechanics were working. And then we are trying to, during this meeting, brainstorm a little bit, but they are not very long, and come up with ideas and put it on the roadmap. So, yeah, that's how it works. But mainly, developers are ideas generators of ideas. Yeah.
Okay, my question. I saw that you use some kind of frameworks and you showed a couple of examples of the games. I see the pattern that almost all of them looked very similar. So there are a couple of elements that are existing in different games, and you are making one game per week. So and you are taking inspiration, for example, from something. So you are not afraid about that you're copying something that already exists, or you are not afraid about that in couple of years there will be too many games and some of them will disappear because there will be too many of them?
We are not afraid. That's one thing, but I think that the space is very competitive now. So even now the App Store is very crowded. So we are trying to figure it out how to. We are releasing a lot of titles in order that some of them will market will validate and market will like, and some of them have to be killed. So you need to be fast in release and also fast in killing your ideas, which doesn't work. But we are not afraid about the. Also, you need to look at the audience. Audience is here very important. Like these are not players. The guys who are playing these games are not players, but they can be anyone, right? So the audience is very wide, and people generally who are would like to entertain in some kind of way. They are playing these games.
And I think coming to your question, it's like whenever we talk about product development, very often we talk about test and iterate, and this actually genre is the specific interesting case when it actually went to very strong extreme, when actually product in itself it's kind of iteration and testing as well. Yeah, so it's kind of the.
Yeah, but. For example, I can talk about myself. I am some kind of hardcore gamer who plays games since, 25 years. And if I look for anything over the, App Store or Google Play, so if I take a look for a kind of game and I see that there's 20 of the same games, how can I choose the right one?
So I think it's two different I think questions. The first one is how to be successful in the gaming industry, which is I think very I would say it would be very long discussion because it has many different variations, especially that you have so many different variables like the audience, like type of the game, country, and so on and so on. And then I think like what is happening right now in hyper casual and why it's actually so many companies and actually got interested with this is that in this perspective you have a little bit different use case because you are mentioning that you are the hardcore gamer. Yes, correct? Yeah. This is in this hyper casual. It's a little bit what Łukasz was saying. Is the audience is wider because in this case the use case is you are not very often the player who is like playing the games all the time. You are using usually the time that you have free, going to the taxi, waiting for the doctor, waiting for your wife at the restaurant, and so on and so on. So it's kind of much wider number of people who are potential players, which means that still competitive market. Yeah, but if you are talking about what makes a success in the gaming is it really it's a lot around what is the different genre, what is the different country, and even the type of the player.
Hi, you said most of your ideas come internally. Whose buy-in do I have to get internally in order for my idea for a game to become a game? Who do I have to convince internally?
The business owner, I think, and the team, internal team. So you as a developer have an idea, right? And you want to develop a project. So we have, during this meeting, we have some brainstorming. So we pitch an idea. You can also prototype the idea, and the team will discuss this, whether it works or not. So at these kind of meetings, there is business owner, there are art designers, so everyone, and these are open discussions about it. So we try to validate very fast internally.
I have a question. How do you promote creativity? Because most of what I saw is copy-paste games. So do you have any creative own ideas?
Yeah, of
On
course.
bigger or smaller titles? Because what I saw here was only copy-paste. So how do you promote creativity, or do you just promote turnaround?
No, of course. So we wouldn't be here if we weren't, if we didn't try to distinguish ourselves from the competition. So in the big titles, this social layer was also, the clans were one of the innovations. But in smaller titles, yes. But we try to take it. We see that there are patterns within this. These players who are playing hyper-casual games, so that's why sometimes we do copies. And if the game performs, so we see big retention inside, we are trying to inventing additional mechanics which haven't been introduced in our competition. So it's like, here you have, people are addicted to some patterns in hyper-casuals. So they will be looking for, I don't know, different designs or something. And if you see that the game has retention, then you're trying to develop new features and think about new ways, innovative ways. We have such kind of games now that one of our games performs, and we will introduce some features which haven't been introduced in our competition.
So I think in this case it's another interesting case when in some way you need to limit creativity as well, because okay, there are specific patterns that users got used to. So like the main reason and main idea behind the hyper casual game is actually that the user needs to understand it during the first like 3 seconds. So there is no tutorial, there is no any information how to work. Like user needs to look at this and he needs to know how it works. That's one thing, and then another, like it's in this approach. If we talk about innovation quality, in this case, the innovation quality is defined by the data. If the user likes it, which means we'll have high retention, users are actually coming back. That means that idea was innovative. And I think this specific example, this specific genre has this privilege that because of this high scale and high volume, and actually the data can be used to validate those ideas very, very early. Okay, thank you very much. We hope it was useful. Thank you.